Hello, I'm Locke Meredith. I'd like to invite you to join me on the next Legal Lines, where my guest is Louisiana State Senator Dan Claitor. Dan's going to talk to us about basically receiving the budget from the governor and the focus and the priorities of that budget being on a raise for state workers, more money for higher education, and disability folks. He's also going to talk to us about his decision to run for United States Congress. So join us on the next Legal Lines with Senator Dan Claitor. Hi, I'm Locke Meredith, and I'd like to thank you on behalf of myself, Sean Fagan, Corey Ogeron, and our entire staff for being our Legal Lines audience for almost 15 years. Our audience now is over 500,000 households. I'd also like to thank Cox Channel 4 and my friend Eric Coleman for being with me from the beginning. From all of us, thank you. Welcome to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith, and I'm again very pleased to have back on the show Louisiana Senator Dan Claitor. Dan, great to see you again, buddy.
Good to see you, Locke.
I know you literally came here straight from the Capitol.
Right.
And as I understand it, the governor gave you his budget that I think you actually have with you.
Right. The governor gave his budget today and gave a nice presentation. It wasn't the governor himself, but it's the governor's budget. The Commissioner of Administration, Christy Nichols, made the presentation.
And that looks like a nice long book, and that's not even all the supporting docs, I think you told me.
That's right. And it's not, well, it should be on the internet now when we go home and look at it, but it's the governor's budget, and to it and attached to it on the internet, if you wanted to look at it, are the supporting documents. So you Google the governor's budget, it pops up, and then what's important, if you want to look at it, is the supporting documents.
And what I found fascinating, Dan, is that, I flat out asked you, do you read every one of those pages? And you said yes.
Well, you have to if you're going to vote on it. People are going to hold you.
I agree, but I mean, that's not what we hear from most folks these days.
Well, the governor's budget is a starting point, and he makes a suggestion of what he would like the budget to look like. Then it goes over to the House, and the House passes their own budget, HB1, but traditionally, it looks pretty close to the governor's budget when it first comes out, and then the House takes it in their money committees, they massage it, and then they vote on it, and then it comes over to the Senate, and we take another look at it as well. But rather than wait on the House to send it over to us, we start working on it now.
And as I understand it, pretty much the governor's office kind of talks about the areas that they want the public to know that he's trying to focus, I guess, monies on. What are those areas this time?
Well, what they've explained to us is their priorities, and I was very happy to hear that these are their priorities. Finally, we're paying attention to higher ed. We've been cutting higher ed.
Year after year after year.
Year after year. And so we've made some significant increases to higher ed, and that's great. And he said that's a priority, but we have to look at the means of financing and how we're getting there. Is that going to be a tuition increase? I don't know. I haven't dug deep enough in the documents yet, but if it's a tuition increase as opposed to coming from the general fund, well, we need to be honest about that. Are we asking the students and their parents to pay for it? And just know what we're voting on. So we'll dig into that, but higher ed is supposed to be a priority.
All right.
Raises for state workers, they haven't had it in a long time. It's supposed to be a priority. Let's get into it. And then one that's been important to me and a lot of other legislators, and important to you as well, is what are we doing about our friends that have disabilities and their children. And so said that they want to focus on that and help people get off the new opportunity waivers, the now waivers, and get people from institutional settings home and in their neighborhoods. All good things. And so if those are the priorities, we'll dig in and see where we are. And of course, we have a lot of other priorities as far as K through 12, childhood education.
Well, we had this conversation probably this time last year, and it seems like it's a record that just plays over and over, that this year, $25 billion budget, and we're about $1 billion short in revenues?
Well, $25 billion budget, and he's supposed to submit a balanced one, and so traditionally it's short, and so you just have to dig into it to find out where is it short. So it's a balanced budget according to them, but as we dig through it, we'll find out. And then we have revenue forecast issues that come in and tell us whether or not we're going to be short. Last year, when we were finishing up the session, I said we have enough money to take care of the families that have been waiting for their assistance with disabilities as far as getting their children home or getting their adult children home. the governor said, no, we don't have enough money for that, and cut it. Turns out we had a surplus, and I believe we could have funded it. So sometimes it's a difficult game.
What happens when the surplus develops? I mean, does that money just sit there until the next budget is submitted, or is it spent?
Well, it's not spent, and we have a bill that addresses that, and we have some real limitations on where that money can go. One of the things that people don't always talk about because it's not all that sexy is the unfunded accrued liability, which is a function of our pension programs. Our teachers over there at
Same issue on the federal level too.
Yeah, our teachers over there at Lehigh, they're in the teachers' retirement system. Well, they expected the teachers to expand and be able to fund it as it goes along. They have a fair amount of their money in the stock market. Turns out it's not funded completely, and there's billions of dollars that are owed to be paid. So we got to figure that out. We go towards that, but it's a tremendous budget, $25 billion, and people go, well, why can't you balance a $25 billion budget? Well, there's not that much of it that is not discretionary.
And we talked about that. I mean, it's the same thing over and over again. And you were saying you have pretty much all the money spent with the exception of two areas, right?
Healthcare and education. And when you say spent, what you really mean is dedicated, where it can't be touched. I understand that idea. When you and I are filling up our cars and putting gas in there and paying our road tax, we want that to go to roads, and it's dedicated, and that makes sense, and the people have said that's what they want. But when they go, well, how come you can't balance a $25 billion budget? A lot of it is dedicated.
Well, let's talk about some great things that have happened for us. It seems like I pick up the paper, and every month we've got another big company coming. The Sasol thing is a huge deal, which I believe we talked about last time.
Absolutely.
You know, and you and I have talked privately about how we're so blessed as a state because of our location in this natural gas.
Absolutely. And every legislator and the governor would like to take some credit for the turnaround in the economy. We've kept the budget where we thought it had to be. We've had some incentives that were out there to bring people here. But at the end of the day, it's our geography with the Mississippi River. The French figured that out 300 years ago.
Long time ago.
Right. And now finally natural gas. And natural gas is the biggest blessing that we have. And I hope that we get it right this time as far as not losing this opportunity. And I think we are going to get it right.
Well, let's you know, it's fantastic that we now will have apparently a lot of jobs available, hopefully in the coming years. But you said we've got another problem, that is we don't have a population that is sufficiently educated to fill all those positions. Explain that.
Well, and that's true, and that's in a lot of different areas. You and I chose to go to college, and that was a path that we embarked on, but when we were at Lehigh, we had shop and we had these other opportunities there, and a lot of our friends chose a different path in college. But as we were coming along, there were ideas that every kid needed to go to college, and it was kind of focused in that direction. But that's not the truth. Not every kid wants to go to college. And so the engineers that we need, we have a woeful shortfall on engineers. And so we're getting engineers from Texas A&M, Lord bless us, you know, but that's where they're coming from. We're getting engineers from Texas and whatnot. But we're making the right change as far as our programs. And the kids are getting there, but we got to have the kid that doesn't want to go to college that can have a great job making $90,000, $120,000. These guys that are and gals that are operators and working in the plant,
making good money.
Yes, and we want to train them and make sure.
So how are we making that happen, Dan?
Well, we're making adjustments in how you get your diploma and what career track that you make, and so we're making some real changes with that, and we're working with industry. Well, who knows better what they need than industry. So we have a good collaborative effort.
Excellent. So these guys coming in saying this is what we need, now we got to give it to them. We'll continue this on the next segment. This is Locke Meredith with Dan Claitor, our Louisiana State Senator. We'll be right back. Hi, I'm Locke Meredith, and I'd like to thank you on behalf of myself, Sean Fagan, Corey Ogeron, and our entire staff for being our Legal Lines audience for almost 15 years. Our audience now is over 500,000 households. I'd also like to thank Cox Channel 4 and my friend Eric Coleman for being with me from the beginning. From all of us, thank you. Welcome back to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith. Again, very pleased to have back on the show Dan Claitor. He is our Louisiana Senator. Dan, let's dive right back in, and thanks for coming.
Sure.
All right, we were talking about how we've got a lot of new companies coming into Louisiana, and unfortunately, we don't have the level of education that they need to run their businesses. What are we doing about it?
The level or type of education. And so we're trying to dial down into the type and the level. And on the kid that decides he doesn't want to go to college, we've worked toward this career diploma idea as far as, hey, I want to be a welder, or I want to be a gauger, or I want to work on the river, or whatever the case may be, to match the kids with the jobs that are available here. And as far as economics are concerned, if you're going to college and I'm going to work and I'm getting a good paying job, more likely than not, my good paying job is going to so far outpace what you're able to make when you come out. I'll be so far ahead of you that you're not going to catch up with me until you're 50.
And particularly given the fact that we have such a high unemployment rate right now.
Right, correct.
I mean, a lot of kids are staying in school because they can't find a job when they get out of school.
Right, well, you can't put a square peg in a round hole if the round hole is what industry is asking for. And
so we are now dedicating more resources at the state level into more of the trade school education.
We're working toward that, and we don't use trade school type of issues
wrong?
anymore.
I'm not being politically correct,
well,
I'm sorry.
We're trying to help the kids get matched to the jobs they want with the education that they need, if that's the path that they choose.
Okay, excellent. Well, it's fascinating because I was speaking with Chandler Loop, who's the mayor pro tem earlier, and education seems to be such a big issue for obviously the state and even here on the local level. And of course, you're one of our senators in the area. And you have been involved to some degree with this whole city of St. George issue that's developed, where folks are now petitioning to have a vote on whether or not a new city will be formed in East Baton Rouge Parish called St. George.
Right.
Tell the folks what your experience has been.
All right, and I'm going to back up a little bit as far as dollars spent on education. The best dollar that we can spend in education, bar none, is early childhood education.
Amen.
We get the best return for our dollar with early childhood education. And the studies show even if it's a mediocre program, we still get a great return on it. So don't let anybody tell you any different. Dollars that we spend on early childhood education are well spent. Secondly, government that it's, as far as school is concerned, that is closer to the parent is always better. You know what's better
Absolutely.
for your children. I know what's better for my children. I'm their dad. You're their dad. When anybody comes to the legislature and just says, I want to be able to educate my children in the best manner possible, as close to home as I can, how can you not respond to that? And how can you not be for that? So the folks from here in the East Baton Rouge Parish over in the southeastern part of the city came to the legislature and said, we want to take control of our children's education out there. Can you help us?
And you supported it.
I supported it. I voted for it twice. In that, how do you say no to somebody that wants to educate their children? Now, there are a lot of different avenues in Louisiana as far as being able to educate your children as far as school choices. And we've made a lot of progress on that. We have charter schools. We have different triggers on when you can ask that your school become a charter. We have state takeovers. It all seems pretty complicated, but at the end of the day, the whole idea is let's empower the parents to be able to make decisions about their children's school. I had a young lady that came to interview to work in my office a while back. I gave her some neighborhoods close to our office so she wouldn't have much of a commute. She says, I'm moving to Zachary. They've got good school system there.
That's the quandary.
Yeah, how many times have you heard that? Or I'm going to
Ascension or Livingston.
Right.
Or out of Louisiana.
Or at what we see on the bigger scale with the Shaws and the Cajun and that type of stuff. You're some bigwig executive from some other place. They're wanting to bring you down here. And then you look around and you look at the schools and you say, well, Mr. Cajun or Mr. Shaw, I would like to come work with you, but I'm going to need $40,000 additional dollars to educate my two children.
That's right.
And so
for a year.
Yeah. And so how can you not understand that? So these folks are passionate about what they want to do, and they're serious about it, obviously, to the point that they're moving forward with a city.
Yeah, us not dealing with this issue is driving people away from our state who we want to stay, and it's preventing people who we'd like to come live here from coming.
Absolutely. And my only concern, and since we were talking about it earlier, I read the bills. We got to read the fine print and make sure what we're getting into. We got to dial all the way down, put all that static and noise out of the way, all the name calling and everything else that's happening, and be absolutely sure, does this process give us a school? And does this process keep our cost in line? And that nothing is free, nothing happens without cost. So we have to be absolutely clear on that. And the debate that we're having on this,
it's a good debate.
It's a good thing. It brings us there. And we should have been talking, you and I should have been talking about this 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And I take some responsibility for
we
that.
Were only,
I put my head down and I was working, and I didn't really look up until about 6 years ago when I got involved in public office.
You're not faced with this issue until you have children. And so young folks just aren't going to deal with it, and then all of a sudden you've got this choice of paying, thousands of dollars private education, or moving, or homeschooling your kid, or sending them to a poorly performing school. So, So bottom line is, you've been involved with it. You understand the motivations behind everything. You want to make sure that that it's the right thing that happens, and that is that we get a high quality education for our kids.
We've heard the governor say it. And we've heard people that oppose the governor say it. Your children's education shouldn't be determined by your zip code.
That's right.
We're all united on that.
Let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about the issues that you've kind of been close to your heart. One was the maritime limits that we have here on a federal basis. Explain to folks what it is.
Yeah. Louisiana and Mississippi and Alabama have one maritime limit, how far we go out to sea. Texas and Florida have a different one. Ours is essentially 3 miles. Texas and Florida is essentially 12. What's the fairness in that?
There isn't any.
No, there isn't.
And there's a whole lot more oil in the extra acreage they got, and we're not getting, because the federal government claims ownership of the rest, right?
Oh, they absolutely claim ownership, and they claim that they're the supervisor out there, how many fish you can catch, what you can do to protect your coast, what you can do as far as
hurricane protection,
everything else. I just wanted fairness in the way that Louisiana is treated relative to Florida and Texas. I brought a bill in Louisiana that extended our maritime limits there, but the federal government has yet to really respond to it, and they're saying, last time y'all tried to leave the union or take anything from the union, it didn't work out so well for you. And I've been expecting the Attorney General to move forward with that and challenge it. He hadn't done anything, and as far as help coming from someplace, it came from a strange place.
Which is what?
The fishermen.
Interesting.
In Louisiana, do not mess with the fishermen or the hunters. You shouldn't do it.
Absolutely.
And so now they believe, and Wildlife and Fisheries believes, with that legislation, that we are in charge of our maritime limits, and so they begin to challenge it.
Excellent. So that becomes a federal issue. Hopefully the federal courts ultimately rule in our favor, and we now have, basically another 9 miles of boundary.
Coast. Or maybe we get some congressmen engaged to go a little bit further.
Interesting thought. This is Locke Meredith with Legal Lines, and our State Senator Dan Claitor. We'll be right back. Hi, I'm Locke Meredith, and I'd like to thank you on behalf of myself, Sean Fagan, Corey Ogeron, and our entire staff for being our Legal Lines audience for almost 15 years. Our audience now is over 500,000 households. I'd also like to thank Cox Channel 4 and my friend Eric Coleman for being with me from the beginning. From all of us, thank you. Welcome back to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith. Again, very pleased to have back on the show Dan Claitor. Here's our Louisiana Senator. Dan, let's dive back in. We were talking about one issue that was really close to your heart was extending our maritime boundary out to 12 miles, just like Mississippi and Texas, correct?
Texas and Florida.
Excuse me, Texas and Florida. Yeah. And it's because it's extraordinarily valuable, and it allows us to have control.
Absolutely, and I'm not quibbling about the minerals. If we were able to follow the Texas model and have those minerals dedicated to higher ed,
No
we'd
problem
be in good
anymore.
shape.
Okay, wow, solves a lot of problems. Money
Solves a
does.
lot of problems, and it's ours. I don't see why the federal government should be dictating to a state that they're taking our minerals.
Interesting. But bottom line is, hopefully the issue will be in front of a court now that Wildlife and Fisheries has raised it as an issue.
Well, it's going to take a while before it comes to a head, and I think perhaps a federal solution is a better idea. Build a coalition there. There seems to be a movement that is more akin to my thinking as far as state rights are concerned, that the states are closer to the people and they're the proper folks to make decisions about what affects their health, safety, and welfare. And so I'd like to see that movement recognize that Louisiana ought to be treated just the same as Texas
I
and
agree
Florida.
100%. Instead of a federal government in D.C. telling us down here what we can and can't do,
Make a
it
decision.
needs to be folks who live in the state.
Make a decision for ourselves, and ultimately the people can make good decisions for themselves.
Another issue that you've been dealing with for a couple of years, it seems like, is this whole Tulane scholarship deal. Explain that to the folks.
Well, it's an embarrassment to me as a legislator in that there's a scholarship that the Tulane University.
And you went to Tulane Law School.
No, I'm a Loyola man. I'm a
I'm sorry.
Wolfpacker.
Okay.
The Jesuits got me, but it's not that I have a dislike of Tulane. I like Tulane. It's a great university. But the history on it is back near the end of the Civil War in the 1880s. Tulane was a public school. It became a private school, and during the process of becoming a private school, under the idea of maintaining access to education, each of the legislators was awarded the privilege of giving out a Tulane scholarship.
So the motivation initially was good.
Well, it was.
By the school, at least.
Right,
for sure.
but there was a deal that was struck also as far as some tax-exempt status, and it's a 150-year-old deal that is hard to figure out the contours of it. And I'm working real hard to understand what the quid quo and the pro is on the deal. But at the end of the day, what happens is each legislator is allowed to award one scholarship, and we're not doing a good job of awarding it properly. We've recently seen where a legislator on the North Shore was giving it to the DA over on the North Shore to his kid. There was no call for that. It shouldn't be happening like that. There was a legislator in New Orleans that was giving it to her campaign manager's child. That's just wrong. I can't say I'm particularly brave about the way that I award it. I give it to the child that has the highest GPA and the highest ACT. You got that, you get the scholarship. And I won't take it away. It's one scholarship, and the kid that had it, she's finishing up. She's at her 4 years. But I'd like to take it away from the legislators and let somebody else award it, in that it's too much of an insider game. People don't even know that it's out there.
No, you're
and
right.
so anybody watching the show, you should apply for the Tulane scholarship.
Make good grades, too.
Yeah.
Good
There's some
ACT
requirements to it, absolutely.
All right, let's shift
But
gears.
that's got to go.
You have decided that you're going to run for United States Congress in place of Dr. Bill Cassidy, who's now running for United States Senate, correct?
Correct.
And you and I talked about this privately a while back, and at the time you had decided, you were thinking about it, but ultimately you decided not to do it. Now you've changed your mind. What happened?
Well, it's not something that you really want to go out there and educate everybody on, but within my family we had some family issues where one of the members of the family's health wasn't well, and I was very concerned about what was going on. My dad was ill. I didn't know where that was going to go, and I couldn't leave my family without doing what I needed to do as a son within there. God was good to us. My father's health has improved quite a bit, and so we're in good shape. We had kind of a fire drill. Everybody knows what they need to do in that situation, and I'm good to go.
Well, and if you go to Congress, you're not staying in the state all the time. You're trucking back and forth regularly.
No, but you have to take care of your family obligations, and you got to be able to commit to it completely. And my family is committed to it completely. I think a man or a woman can still make a difference in Congress, and I think they need to hear from regular guys like you and me up there. Bring a little sense as far as not have somebody that's been in that business forever.
And that's the truth. I wish there were term limits on Congress. I don't think we'd have half the problems we have now with fiefdoms. But
they are term limits, and then it's called an election every 2 years.
That doesn't seem to work too good, because what is it, 90% of the incumbents are always returned to their position, and we got guys that have been up there 40 or 50 years, for crying out loud.
Well, and what the issue really is, Locke, is money. And the influence of money on Congress and how that works. And we certainly can improve the way that's working, but at the same time, balancing that as far as somebody's free speech and their ability to participate in there. But there's got to be a reasonable balance. We can't be in the position of just sending the extremely wealthy to Congress.
We're broken, is the way I view it. I think we're broken. So I'm thrilled to hear that you're running. Tell the folks what your guiding principles are. I know they're similar to mine, and you've stated them already, that basically it's minimum government and maximum freedom to individuals, but responsibility to the individuals.
Well, and somebody that's also willing to do their homework. It sounds corny, but you got to go there and do the work. It's not about the photo op. It's about the work that you do in your office, reading the bills and being prepared. And that's not sexy, and that's not a great message as far as, oh, I can identify with that. But it's a guy that's going to do his homework, that has a family, that understands what everyday folks are having to go through to get by. And I like to represent every man, and I like the idea of representing smaller business. I can't identify completely with Exxon or Dow or any of those places, but I certainly understand what it takes to run a small business and get by day to day. And we, small businessmen, are able to make good decisions for ourselves, and we don't need the federal government to tell us how to run every aspect of our life. It's a better idea to have the states in control of that.
That's right. Health,
safety, and welfare, that's state issues, and we don't need a federal law for every single aspect of our life. If the federal government would stay out of our business, we're better off. And the only way that you can bring that message is to go there and tell them, stay out of our business.
And instead of one of what we were talking about, one of 4.2 million voices, you become one of 435 in the House, and a voice certainly that I support. Tell the folks, in the sense that you've now decided that you're going to make that sacrifice, or hope that they empower you to make that sacrifice. What other guiding principles? You know, we're more divided now as a nation than I ever recall in my lifetime. We seem like we're split down 50-50. How would you deal with that?
Well, you know me, and you've known me for a long time. I have never been one to dismiss anybody out of hand. I don't care where you got your idea or what your label is, but if it's a good idea and it's a good label, I mean,
you're going to support it.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it.
All right,
but
Dan,
we can't take that approach.
Amen. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Good to see you. This is Locke Meredith Legal Lines. Our Louisiana Senator Dan Claitor. Thank you for being with us.